Brand new Fox News polls show 57% of voters feel optimistic about the economy. That's down from 63% in February, and it's on the heels of the U.S.-Mexico deal on immigration. Now, over half voters there say they oppose President Trump's initial plan to use tariffs to pressure our southern neighbor. 45% also disagree with President Trump, saying tariffs hurt rather than help the economy. This comes ahead of the G20 summit in Japan later this month, where President Trump says he expects to meet with China's President Xi Jinping to discuss the trade showdown. I want to bring in White House trade advisor Peter Navarro. Peter, it's interesting because President Trump gets high marks on the economy, but the marks are lower when people are asked about the tactics. So what do you make of these things? Because you are perhaps the chief architect, if you will, or advocate of the use of tariffs in these negotiations.
Charles, I think a lot of it has to do with how the question is asked. Polls show that about 80% of Americans believe there's a crisis at the border. If you ask Americans in a poll, what do you think about 100,000 illegal aliens moving every day on a conveyor belt from Guatemala up to San Diego and El Paso? I'd say about 90% of them would object to that. And the tariffs that President Trump used, he got in 2 days more than Congress did in 20 years on this. We've got troops down at the southern border that Mexico has deployed. We've got Mexico committing to take the phony asylum seekers onto Mexican soil, which will deter further immigration from the northern triangle down at the southern border of Mexico. And we have a very strong commitment to break up that conveyor belt, which is this Rube Goldberg machine of narco traffickers and human traffickers making billions of dollars off these poor immigrants coming up and off the American people who have to take their drugs and the illegal immigrants, which hurt us in terms of jobs.
And Peter, there's no doubt that it worked swiftly with Mexico. It hasn't worked as fast with China. It hasn't worked as fast with China, and now critics are saying it won't work at all. What are your thoughts?
Again, let's do the polling on this. Harvard-Harris poll came out and showed a strong majority of Americans support the China tariffs, and 8 out of 10 Republicans. And they do that because there's a growing awareness now of China's economic aggression. We had a deal with China. It was over 150 pages on 7 chapters. And I think, Charles, it's always useful to remind the American people what we're trying to negotiate an end to. It's the cyber intrusions into our business networks to steal our trade secrets. It's the forced technology transfer practices as a condition of market access. It's the intellectual property theft that China engages in, Charles, to the tune of several $100 billion a year. It's the dumping of product, the fentanyl, and that's the one that just fries me, the fentanyl coming in and killing tens of thousands of Americans. That's made right in China. I was in Buenos Aires, Argentina back in December when the president of China promised to stop that flow, and we haven't seen any of that yet.
Peter, all of that stuff is why those tariffs have become popular with the American public. Multinational businesses, though, they revert back to the notion that any kind of trade with partners is good. And you just wrote a piece about this. I don't want to get too wonky, but you said Ricardo is dead.
Wonky. I love it.
I know, but we want to make sure the audience loves it too. So
I understand.
Ricardo is dead. Essentially, someone the idea of comparative advantage and hey, if some country wants to sell us cheap plastic stuff, we benefit and they benefit. You're saying that we should smash that, despite the fact that 600 CEOs just wrote President Trump a letter this week saying that they're against his tariff tactics. What are they getting wrong?
I think what we've learned in the last 20 years under Biden and Bush and Hillary Clinton is that when you offshore our factories and jobs to take advantage of so-called cost efficiencies in the globalized supply chain, you wind up just tearing the heart out of the American economy, and that ripples down into national security problems. President Donald J. Trump figured that out 20 years ago when this was happening. He's president now. He's doing something about it. We like localized supply chains because they bring the jobs home. And from a national security point of view, it provides us with less risk. So to those CEOs who want to go off to foreign lands and then sell their products back here using cheap labor and bad regulations out there. We say no, that's not going to happen under Donald J. Trump's watch.
You know, I think it's also a great time to point out that for people who want to feel proud about this country, you know, if you insist on doing business with a country that's locked up 1 million people for their religious beliefs, you should think about that. These 600 CEOs probably should consider that when they put pressure on the White House ahead of the G20 meeting. Everyone's entitled to an opinion. I understand classic economics, but like you, Peter, I'm concerned, and I think, you know, for me, I'm wondering whether the administration should continue to articulate their position, because, listen, the billionaires in this country have a lot of platforms, and they get their message out every single day.
Well, I think we're getting our message out as well in the 2.5 years that the president has been in office. And by the way, Charles, it is the 4th-year anniversary of the most famous escalator ride in history, and congratulations to Donald J. Trump. But in the 2.5 years President Trump's been in office, he has changed the narrative on China forever. Prior to him taking office, the idea was economically engage with the Chinese. It would be peace and kumbaya. Today, bipartisan consensus that China is a strategic rival out to take our jobs, our factories, and we're taking a much harder line.
Because I got to ask you about this. You brought up bipartisan agreement on China. You're right. The world sees, Americans now see, that cheap plastic stuff came at a cost that we should have never endured. But where's the bipartisanship on the USMCA? When is that going to get approved? Why is it being held up?
Great question, Charles. Let's talk about what that is. The USMCA, U.S.-Canada, Mexico-Canada agreement is a replacement for the worst trade deal in history, which is NAFTA. My favorite part of the deal is the strict rules of origin provisions on autos and other products, coupled with strong environmental and labor provisions, which will bring our manufacturing home and keep it home.
Peter,
I think it will get passed. It's in the great interest of American workers, farmers, ranchers, and manufacturers. I think there's a broad bipartisan support. We're hoping to get implementing legislation onto the floor of the House and the Senate this summer. That's what we're targeting. All
right, Nancy Pelosi, I hope she's watching. Hey, Peter Navarro, always great having these conversations with you. Thank you very much.
Great to talk with you here, sir.
Happy Father's Day.